A brief history of palmistry. The subject of palmistry, or the study of the human hand, is composed of two parts: chirosophy, or the mystical significance of the lines, markings, and developed areas, and chirognomy, or an analysis of the shape and formation of the hand, thumb, and fingers. While the two are closely interwoven, the emphasis was originally on chirosophy, which was closely identified with astrology, as witness the names of the planets as applied to the areas called mounts. The lines, too, were generally interpreted in divinatory terms, as with other psychic sciences. At the same time, formations were noted and used by experts in the art of chirosophy, and their readings became so accurate that scientific surveys were undertaken, resulting in a definitive classification of shapes and their indication. Thus, chirognomy came into vogue. In more recent years, studies of a purely physiological nature have indicated that lines and other features may be affected by retarded development, ill health, and other physical causes, thus further verifying the traditions of chirosophy by the findings of chirognomy. Most interesting of these developments is the fact that character traits can be noted by a preliminary observation of a person's hands, even at a distance, and often at a glance. Unquestionably, the early chirosophists must have recognized those points, and the later chirognomists made special note of them. So in all hand analysis, these factors should be considered. Large hands indicate an ability for detail. Small hands show the reverse because of an impatient trend. Mannerisms are easily observed and very revealing. The graceful, lightly moving hand denotes a person who is popular at social gatherings and at the office. It is a sign of affection and interest in others. Clenched hands are a sign of a dynamic, restless, pushing personality, but one that is usually self-reliant. Extended fingers show extremists who like attention, especially when the little finger is extended while holding a cup or glass. This is also a moody sign. Nervous, gesturing hands are those of quick thinkers, but with an inclination to be over-anxious. Relaxed hands are the token of a practical person who is apt to be interested in almost anything. Hands that hide in pockets or are clasped together as though hiding their palms are an indication of good listeners, but also those who change their opinions too easily. Fingers held close together show good leaders, but often a stingy nature. Fingers held slightly apart denote a trustful, friendly disposition. Fingers held far apart indicate persons who are unconventional, but extravagant. Fingers held so that they curve inward are those of persons who are secretive, but who like things their own way. The rule for reading palms is that the subjective left hand should be examined first. It indicates the natural inclinations and abilities. The right hand is called the objective hand. It shows how far the person may follow the pattern indicated by the subjective hand. With left-handed people, the right hand is the subjective, and the left hand is the objective. The palm itself is divided into 9 sections called mounts. These are areas that indicate the traits of the person. The lines and other markings tell how those traits are used. The fingers and thumbs add or detract depending upon their individual qualities. Lines can and often do change, so does the entire appearance of the hand, just as the face changes. It is interesting to study the hands of babies and children as they grow up. Often new indications will appear to verify the development of certain abilities. Lines can be eradicated temporarily or permanently by shock or illness. Lesson 2, we cover an overview of the methodology of reading a palm. First step, determine the type of hand by the shape of the fingers and palm. It will be one of 5 types: the square, the conical, the spatulate, the pointed, or mixed. Test flexibility and texture. Determine the angle of the thumb. Look for smooth or knotty finger joints. Type the fingernails. Note peculiarities. Check the fingers for length, long for detail, short for impulsiveness. Compare phalanges for irregularities in size and shape. Examine the set of the fingers, whether high, low, or normal. Check the slant of the fingers and the flat or cushioned appearance of each phalange. Check the thumb for the same characteristics as the fingers. Compare the 2 thumbs. Note the differences. Check every area of the palm for development, absence, or overdevelopment. Decide which mounts are important. These determine the natural abilities and emotional background. Note small markings not touching major lines. Evaluate the importance of the fingers directly connected with the developed mount areas. Check the life, head, and heart lines for beginnings, terminations, breaks, phrase, color, and special markings such as a cross or an island. Compare with the time chart to pinpoint the markings. Check for influence lines. Check the fate lines the same way. Look for secondary lines and analyze them carefully, especially for their relation to basic lines. Check all the findings and weigh them cautiously, bearing in mind the difference between the subjective and the objective hand. If a person is right-handed, the left hand is called the subjective hand, representing the natural talents and the characteristics. The right hand is called the objective hand, showing how those talents and qualities have been developed or neglected. Each of these 10 steps will be elaborated in detail in subsequent videos. How to tell time on a palm, in other words, when you see events, how to tell where or when in a person's life these events occurred. Time is computed approximately by dividing the basic lines into segments totaling 90 to 100 years, always starting from the beginning of each line. The lifeline starts the count from the point of beginning, which is between the thumb and forefinger. The head and heart lines follow the same way. The fate lines, Saturn, Apollo, and Mercury, start their time reading from the bottom of the palm to the top. The different types of hands. The elementary hand is rarely seen, but it's easy to identify because of a short thumb, wide palm, and thick, short fingers. The hand can be a bit stiff. It tends to be found among those who work a lot with their hands as opposed to their minds. The square hand. The square hand is the practical working hand. It is really rectangular overall, but the palm is square and the fingers have a squared off appearance at the fingertips. People with these hands want everything organized with specific plans. Very forceful and determined to fulfill the requisites for living and the pursuit of happiness. The conical hand. The conical hand tapers gently from base to fingertips. Each finger tapers to an elliptical tip. This is the inspirational type. They are exuberant, and their enthusiasm for the artistic is very evident. They love companionship and are very social-minded. They must be encouraged to activate their ideas. The spatulate hand. The spatulate hand represents a very active person. The entire appearance of the hand is suggestive of the spatula. There are two types. One, palm is wider at the wrist than at the base of the fingers. The second type is the reverse, wider at the top than at the wrist. The fingertips are spatulate. The hand spreads out fan-shaped. It denotes great activity. It can be found in all kinds of work, from artisan to artist. The energetic laborer may excel in sports. The architect may have revolutionary ideas, but always there is the urge to be active, to do something more, to be original. The idealistic hand is also called the psychic hand. In its purest form, the fingers are pointed. The hand is long, narrow, and thin. This is the intuitive mind, the idealist. Extremists of religious cults and philosophies may be found with these hands. They can become martyrs to their own ideas. The mixed hand. Most hands are mixed. The square hand may have 2 or 3 different types of fingers. The spatulate may have only 2 or so that vary. It is necessary to analyze the fingers carefully, then combine the findings. The thumb is the indicator. If it is square, just as an example, a practical aspect will modify or regulate any idealism that might be on a pointed first finger or a spatulate third finger, which would partake in a speculative nature. This is the way to diagnose a thumb and finger relationship with a specific problem hand. The philosophical hand. This is an old classification of hands that are really square or conical, but always have knots on both joints of all of the fingers and the thumb joint. The hand has a long, lean appearance. It represents the thinker, one who wants to weigh every question carefully. Many teachers have this type of hand. The fingertips can vary, square or conic. Either way, these are the men and women who seek knowledge. The flexibility of the hand is also important. Very flexible hands have fingers that bend backward, almost curling, some almost at right angles to the palm. These are extremists who like to live an unrestrained, almost unconventional life. usually very talented. Medium flexibility. The fingers bend back slightly, at least noticeably. These belong to people who are reasonable and willing to meet you halfway in a business agreement. Stiff hands will not bend. Neither will their owners. They are unyielding and hard to convince, but once they give their word, they abide by it. Texture of hands. Flabby hands are loose-skinned and swollen in feeling them. Temperament is variable, sometimes genial, sometimes irritable. Soft hands feel limp and listless to the touch. Although they detest manual labor, they must not be underrated. Many successful and famous people have just such hands. Firm hands belong to determined people who accept the good with the bad, but work with conviction in every effort. Hard hands are stiff to the touch. Their owners are resolute and hard to convince, unusually obdurate, but with good lines and well-shaped thumbs. They listen to reason. The thumb is the index to the character of the hand. Placed low with a wide thumb angle, careless and irresponsible. High on the hand and difficult to move. Cautiousness varying to stubbornness. Medium set, adaptability. The average thumb should extend to the middle of the bottom phalange of the first finger. Any thumb lower than this is considered short. A thumb longer than this is considered longer and therefore more forceful. If a hand has weak lines, a long thumb would strengthen the intellectual needs. The thumb has 3 parts: first, second, and third phalanges. The third is the mount of Venus and part of the palm proper. It represents love, affection, and sympathy as described under the mounts. The first phalange represents willpower. The second, reasoning ability. If the first phalange is longer, willpower is stronger. If the thumb is square, there is practical application. If conical, the artistic viewpoint. If pointed, idealistic. A second phalange, which is too short, denotes a tactless person and a lack of reasoning. The thumb is normally broader than it is thick. If it is as thick as it is broad, an unbalanced, violent nature. Slender thumbs, patience. A wasted second phalange, great understanding and sympathy for both people and creatures. A knotty joint on the thumb, the analytical mind. A smooth joint, impulsiveness. Flexibility of the thumb denotes the intensity of logic and willpower indicated in the palm. A stiff thumb adds determination, stubbornness. Extremely supple is talented and extremists. Moderate pliability is reasonable and good understanding. To measure for length of fingers, measure the second finger from tip to knuckle. Measure the back of the palm from that knuckle to the wrist bone. Measure the palm side from the bottom of the second finger to the wrist. The two latter should be equal. Compare this measurement with that of the finger. If the finger is longer, you have long fingers. If shorter, you have short fingers. If they are the same in measurement, the balance is average. Each finger has its own interpretation, following the meaning of the mounts directly below them. They also carry the same names: Jupiter, the first finger; Saturn, the second; Apollo, the third; Mercury, the fourth. The fingers modify or direct the qualities of each mount. Long fingers increase the value. Short fingers decrease the value. Very long fingers exaggerate the value. If the fingers lean towards Jupiter, the first finger, ambition is most important. If they lean towards Mercury, money is most important. Towards Saturn, a scholarly or serious attitude towards life. Knotted upper joints denote reasoning ability. Knotted lower joints, practicality. Long fingers belong to somebody interested in every detail. Those with short fingers are impetuous, want to grasp the overall quickly and leave details to others. Very short fingers belong to those who may be selfish, unconventional, and brutal. Crooked fingers detract from the good qualities, chiefly by irresponsibility. Low-set fingers add indifference. Thin fingers denote delicacy. Thick fingers, self-indulgence. Very long first finger, desire to rule. Very long second finger, zealous struggle for religious aspiration. Very long third finger, urge to gamble. Very long fourth finger, money conscious. Fingers that are held close together, secretive. Fingers held apart, non-secretive, too outspoken. Bending back, clever, careless bender. General meaning of the phalanges. First, mental. Second, practical. Third, materialistic. The latter includes sensuous desires such as overeating, love of luxury, and ostentation to a varied degree. Padded first phalange, very sensitive. A pointed fingertip adds idealism. A square tip, practicality. A spatulate tip, action. The set of the fingers is important. The normal set for a square hand is almost in a straight line across the palm. All others make a gentle curve, so the first finger sits a little lower than the second and third, while the little finger drops down slightly. Any finger that is noticeably low detracts greatly from the value of the mount area. Nails of both the finger and thumb are classified as follows: long, artistic, idealistic; short, critical; very short, irritable; very broad, meddlesome; thick, indolence; fluted, overexertion; a ridge crosswise; a physical weakness or period of illness. Hard, good physical endurance. Wedge-shaped, too sensitive. Pale pink nails. Even temperament. White, impartial. Red, impulsive. Purple, faulty circulatory system. White specks, lack of calcium, often nervous. Today I'm talking about the mounts of the palm, and I will be covering the mounts of Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, and Mercury today, and we'll be following up with the other mounts in another video. The palm is divided into 9 areas. They are the key to our natural abilities and emotional traits. Each area is called a mount, which sounds as though there is a point or hump in each section. This is not the case. It has been a traditional term to designate the different qualifications of each area, naming them in order around the palm. They are as follows. The mount of Jupiter under the first finger, Saturn under the second finger, Apollo under the third, Mercury under the fourth, Upper Mars under Mercury on the percussion side of the palm, Luna occupying the rest of the percussion side of the palm, Venus between the root of the thumb to the encircling line called the line of life, and extending from the wrist to about 3/4 of the distance upward within the line of life. The rest of this area is called Lower Mars. The center of all these areas is called the plane of Mars. The higher or the more space that is developed, the more important are the traits attributed to that area. They are a fleshy elevation filling the entire area, or they can be off-center. Each location has a variation of the meaning of the area and its relation to the entire analysis of the palm. The plane of Mars is the plane or hollow center of the palm. If the mount area is so high or spread out that it appears to unbalance the rest of the palm, the qualities represented by that mount must be kept under control. Lacking height, look for the center or apex of the whorl formation. Overlapping mounts partake of both areas. The mount area of Jupiter normally represents ambition and social prestige if the development is closer to the side of the palm. Family pride is the chief ambition. Closer to the headline, leadership, a desire for authority. Here, arrogance would have to be subdued. Placed nearer Saturn, scholarly attributes. If the area is very high or large, conceit. Generally, idealism is the keynote for Jupiter. Fanaticism, exaggeration, and lack of dignity cannot be tolerated by a balanced Jupiterian. One vertical line, success. 2 lines, more than one ambition. A cross, a happy marriage. A star, fame. Too many lines, too many interests. The grail, very unfavorable, the reverse of all the good qualities of Jupiter. Absence of the mount, superstitious, vain, boastful, lack of respect. Mount of Saturn. This mount area is seldom highly developed. Usually it partakes of either or both Jupiter and Apollo. Saturn in itself is the epitome of sobriety, love of solitude, cautiousness, and mental reserve are characteristics. Developed close to the heartline, the qualities magnify. Toward Jupiter, very serious viewpoint about life. Toward Apollo, genuine interest in the arts. Sentiment becomes important. Very active Saturnians, those with spatulate fingers, have ability for sturdy occupations such as mining or agriculture. Absence of the mount, indifference, periods of morbidness, often antisocial, a realist with little care for anyone. A single small vertical line, luck in spite of self. Two small lines, unusual success, a philosophical mind. Cross lines, too much interference. Saturnians must have solitude. Delicate fine lines, mental problems. Across, suicidal tendencies, prone to accidents. A star, health problems. A square, danger from fire. A grill, unscrupulous, entanglements with the law. Mount of Apollo. This mount area represents the talent for and appreciation of the arts. It stands for brilliance and achievement in any field of endeavor. Developed towards Saturn, a serious aspect is uppermost. Toward Mercury, a practical business mind is added to the talents. Shrewdness in all deals. One vertical line. Fame or fortune, perhaps both. Two lines. May have two good talents. Several lines, usually crossed by one or more lines, but not a grill. Too many talents, causing a diversion of interest. All Apollonians are versatile and enchanting, overdeveloped mounts, fantastic natures inclined to overrate their ability. Absence, non-intellectual, despise culture in every aspect, reckless. But sometimes one of this class has a tremendous acumen for high finance with great possibilities for success. A star promises great fortune. Cross, if no line of Apollo. Poor judgment and speculation. A cross with the line of Apollo. Success after long and arduous work. A circle, fame. A grill, exaggerated valuation of personal talent. Horizontal lines, many obstacles to overcome. Mount of Mercury. The mount area of Mercury represents hope. Normally, it adds gaiety and cheerfulness to the clear thinking, practical, managerial faculties that make this area so important. Fortunately, many classes of people can have this development. Top bracket business executives, men and women in every profession and business niche, the underrated but magnificently capable housewife, all must possess some degree of the qualities of the Mount of Mercury, otherwise they could not be successful. Developed toward Apollo, love and appreciation for everything artistic, love of beautiful surroundings. Toward the percussion, a touch of humor. Toward the base of the finger, business before pleasure. Toward upper Mars, an indomitable spirit, willing to fight for a cause, very dependable under stress. Absence of the mount, lacking all business ability, an utterly purposeless life. Overdeveloped, swindlers and criminals may have this driving force, though in good hands it furnishes the stimulus for inventive minds. Also indicative of a high-pressure salesman. The horizontal lines on this area are the marriage lines, which are discussed elsewhere in this course. A single vertical line, promise of wealth, interest in scientific achievements. 2 or 3 lines, varied interests that have a business possibility or that materially aid in the building of a career. 4 vertical lines are called the medical stigmata. There may be a cross line with them. This is a very old term. Nevertheless, many a nurse and doctor has these lines. More than 4 lines, very loquacious, also careless about money. A cross, a born diplomat, one who says the right thing at the right time. In a scheming hand, deceit. A grill, severe punishment or death due to malpractice or violation of the law. Square, great business foresight. The mount area of Luna represents imagination, intuition, creative ability, and motivation. It is a large area, so it must be examined carefully to determine the exact location of the apex or precise spot of development. Luna has varied physical forms. It can bulge in spots or all over. It can be thin and almost flat. There may be few lines or many. It may have the color of a lot of blood or a little. All of these things have a meaning. When developed towards upper Mars, the practical dreamer, able to apply imaginative ideas to everyday needs. If the entire percussion bulges, need for physical activity combined with some creative project. Near the wrist, sensuality, sometimes just imaginative. Toward Venus, romantic, emotional. Toward the plane of Mars, aggressiveness to further one's ability. All of these types are intensified if the mount shows a reddish color, a bluish color. Sadness, even melancholia enters the imagination, such as the gloomy poet or composer. Pale color may possess any one of the qualifications for the specific type, but indifference would be evident unless pressure were exerted. Absence of any development, the poser, the imitator, usually satisfied with their place in life, no matter what it happens to be. Lines on the area of Luna are very important because they are directional. Every talent will be corroborated on this area. Inventors, artists, writers, actors, musicians, builders, designers, in fact, every imaginative, creative talent is represented with the lunarian mark or development. In excess, this talent becomes fanciful or foolish. If the imagination is too strong without a well-balanced intelligence, lunacy may result, or at least a very confused and erratic mind. The horizontal lines show many interests, lines that extend to the areas of Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, or Mercury automatically assume the name of those respective mounts and are explained when I cover the major lines. The short lines, starting on the percussion, are lines of change, often called travel lines, and are so interpreted as journeys. In a creative hand, these lines can be considered as many interests. Slanting lines pertain to the same creative ideas. Many fine lines, nervous tension. Oblique lines, more important interests concerned with travel. Across, dreamy nature, superstitious, such as many theatrical people. a large cross, wild imagination, a grail, inconstancy, fickleness, neurotic nature, islands, fear and possible danger from water, star, conflicting translations, meritorious achievement by risking life or fortune, serious accident or death on a perilous expedition, triangle, unusual talents, brilliant success, square, escape from dangers of water and sky. The Mount of Venus. The Mount area of Venus represents love, sympathy, passion, and vitality. A well-centered, moderately cushioned area partakes of all qualities. The top section is the area of the Mount of Lower Mars, a low, flat area, cool, calculating, dispassionate, unless Lower Luna is very accentuated. In that case, perverted ideas may rule the subject. If Venus is developed toward Lower Mars, an antagonistic nature, near the wrist, affectionate, sensual, near Luna, self-indulgent, near the thumb base, very emotional, excessively cushioned, dynamic in love and friendship. If the area is hard, very muscular, resentful, will not tolerate interference, curved lines parallel to the line of life, friends or relatives influential to happiness, diagonal or horizontal lines that touch the lifeline, interferences, a grill, passionate nature, many very small fine lines in crisscross effect, the constant worrier, a large cross, happy love and marriage. That is it for the Mount of Venus. In my next video, I will be talking about the Mount of Mars. Thank you for watching. Please visit my website, gypsywitchmagic.com. Please have a wonderful day. Blessed be.